If you live in Europe and want to buy ETFs, you need to make an important choice. Do you want accumulating or distributing ETFs? Hi, I'm Tom Crosshill. As a professional investor, I have invested over 200 million euros in index funds and ETFs. In this video, I will explain accumulating and distributing ETFs, how they work, what they mean for taxes, and which you should choose. So first, what's the difference? Let's say you buy a stock ETF that invests in Microsoft, Coca-Cola, or Johnson & Johnson. When those companies earn a profit, they will pay part of that profit to investors in the form of dividends. So the ETF receives dividends from its investments. The question is, what happens next? A distributing ETF pays this dividend out to you. Once every 3 months, the ETF sums up all dividends received and pays them out to fund investors. That's some sweet passive income in your bank account. You can use it to buy more investments, to pay your rent, or to do this. Sounds good, right? Well, not so fast. As we'll see in a moment, distributing funds are not always the best choice. By contrast, an accumulating ETF does not pay out dividends. Instead, when it gets the dividends from the companies it buys, the ETF reinvests the money. In other words, it uses the dividends to buy more stocks. With an accumulating ETF, the value of the ETF increases, but you do not receive any cash in your account. But which type of fund is better for you, accumulating or distributing? Well, the answer depends on convenience and on taxes. Let's take those one by one. First, convenience. If you are a long-term buy and hold investor, a distributing ETF is actually not very convenient. Every time you get a distribution, you need to take that money and reinvest it. That's right. You need to take a break from work or family or your YouTube addiction and spend time and energy picking what investments to buy. Plus, you need to pay brokerage fees. Accumulating ETFs are more convenient for long-term investors because the ETF reinvests all dividends on its own. You just sit back like a boss and let your money make money. That's if you're a long-term investor. But what if you want your portfolio to give you passive income right now, today? Aren't distributing ETFs better in that case? Well, kinda. Sure, a distributing ETF will pay out distributions regularly, so that's passive income. But the amount that you receive will almost never match what you actually need. For example, let's say you need 3,000 euros of passive income every 3 months. Well, your actual ETF distributions will be different every time, and they are hard to predict. They could be 2,467 euros or 4,152 euros. In the first scenario, you will need to sell some fund units to make up the difference. In the second scenario, you will need to reinvest the extra cash that you got. So that's not so convenient, right? Compare that to an accumulating ETF. You never receive distributions, so there's no passive income, and that's a problem, right? Well, actually wrong. Whenever you want to take passive income from an accumulating ETF, you can simply sell the exact number of fund units that you need. No more, no less. Sometimes people are scared of selling their investments, but it's often the simplest way to get exactly the passive income that you need. In my book, accumulating funds are a lot more convenient than dealing with the unpredictable cash flow from a distributing fund. So why would anybody invest in distributing funds at all? The real answer has to do with everyone's favorite subject, taxes. In most countries, when an ETF pays you a distribution, you need to pay tax on that. For example, if you receive 100 euros from your distributing ETF, you might need to pay, let's say, 20 euros in taxes that same year. So that leaves you with 80 euros to reinvest. But when an accumulating fund receives dividends, it reinvests them immediately. The money never gets to you. And in most countries, that means there is no need to pay tax straight away. Looking at our example again, if there is a 100 euro dividend, well, it stays inside the accumulating fund. It gets reinvested in the full amount of 100 euros, not the 80 euros that you had in the case of the distributing fund. So that means that the full amount of money is going to make more money for you for years and years until finally you sell the accumulating fund in the future. So which do you prefer? To pay tax today or to keep your money and have it make more money for you and only pay tax 20 years in the future? I mean, that's a tough question, isn't it? So that's why in most European countries, accumulating funds get you better long-term results. You don't have to pay tax upfront, the money stays in there and it keeps working for you. That said, in some countries, it doesn't work that way. In some countries, the tax authority sees that your accumulating fund is receiving dividends and says, well, those dividends are actually your personal income. Even if the fund never paid the dividends out to you, you still need to pay tax. So even though the full 100 euros remain inside the accumulating ETF, you still need to pay tax as if you got the money in your personal account. Annoying, isn't it? But that's how it works in a few countries such as Austria, the UK, Denmark, and Switzerland. In those countries, accumulating funds are not so great for taxes because you need to pay tax straight away even though you're not actually getting any cash flow in your bank account. And this can make distributing funds more appealing. Okay, so here's the final verdict. Accumulating funds are almost always more convenient than distributing funds. And in most countries, they are also better for taxes. The main exceptions in Europe are Austria, Denmark, the UK, and Switzerland. If you pay taxes in one of these countries, a distributing fund might be better. But in most other cases, accumulating funds win the day.